Okay, we're joined now by NBA veteran and father of Gary Trent Jr., Gary Trent Sr. How you doing today, Gary?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good. It's about to get cold up here in Minnesota. Next week the high supposed to be -3. That's the high. So,
That's
so
not a
I'm
very
just I'm getting ready
optimistic.
for that. It's gonna be ugly till about March. December and February be cool. I mean, December and January be cool, but like late January all the way to March is when it just get with the National Geographic extreme type.
Well, why are you in Minnesota, if I may
Uh,
ask?
Well, I'm from Columbus, Ohio, which is a small place, really no opportunities, and I had moved back home when I retired, had to, get my affairs in order, try to get custody of my son. But what I noticed was every year, there was always a preseason NBA game at Ohio State Arena at Ohio State campus, and I would always see friends and familiar faces and things like this. And I realized I was out of my network loop because, there was no NBA team there like it is in Minnesota. Besides that, it was the last place I had played, you know, um, and also all of my kids are my kids live here, their mom lives here, her family's from here. So it was just, a better place, and if you look at the Midwest, right? I'm from Ohio, which is slow. There's nothing in Nebraska. There's nothing in Iowa. There's nothing in North Dakota, South Dakota. Detroit, got its issues. So really remove Chicago. Minneapolis is probably the second best city in the Midwest behind Chicago because you got all four sports teams here: hockey, baseball, NFL, NBA. You got, a handful of nice restaurants here. You also have a lot of the Fortune 500 companies here. It's a lot of money here. You got 3M here. You got Target here. You got Pillsbury here. You got General Mills here. So it's a lot of money here, and it's they have you look at the overall state. This is one of the top states in America for ACT and SAT scores.
Hmm. Good
They
school.
got, yeah, it's a lot of people that move down here from Chicago because they have good welfare system and medical system. So, it's a lot of little nuances and things you learn about cities once you move there and need those resources. Because, living here as an NBA player, none of those things I thought about. I didn't care about what they had going on from a ACT standpoint and what their basketball scene was like. I was here to do my job, and that's what I focused on.
Well, tell us a little bit about your history and beginning to play basketball and when you started playing basketball. And I looked at your college career. Lord have mercy, shooting 80, no, high school, shooting 81% from the floor. Who were you playing against, Gary?
Nobody's
So,
breaking that. That
so,
that
so
record.
here's how this happened, man. Um, I was having a lot of issues growing up as a kid, far as my mom was getting high for many years. My dad was serving a life sentence in prison on a CCE, continual criminal enterprise as a cocaine kingpin. So, he went away like 86, 87. And we
How
just was
old were
living
you?
good.
How old were you then when he went away?
About 13. I was in like seventh grade. So, this was when the crack epidemic was hitting real hard. And, it started probably in California, New York first, but, it trickled down to Ohio. So it was really just, tearing through our city. And a lot of my family and my mom included just happened to be a lot of victims of that era. And, we started living in a house, once my dad was in prison, because for a while we was living in the hood. Then my dad started getting money. We moved out, but then he went back. When he went to prison, we went back to the hood. So now, with my mom being, getting high and all of that, now we living in a house 2 years in Ohio. We don't have gas, no
Mm.
hot water. We got, what's crazy though, we got cable in my name though. You know how that goes. Yeah, right. it was the funny thing when I went to get a cell phone when I got drafted, I had bad credit. I'm like, dude,
Oh,
you see,
wow.
I'm 19 years old right now. How
Yeah.
old you think I was in '88 with bad credit? You know?
Yeah, they call you on the collection, and it's
Yeah,
like,
Yeah,
okay,
they
so
wanted the cable money, man. So
yeah,
you
they
know,
did
but
that. A lot of people did that. Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
So it was just living in those conditions. So I end up, having to move out from my mom's house, and I started living with her sister way out in this little suburb place. It was the same conditions as far as the house. She was getting high too, because everybody was getting high in that era. But when I step out the front door, the conditions were different. When I lived with my mom, it was straight hood. I could step out there, there was a strip. Everybody knew where to come to buy dope. You know what I'm saying? Everybody knew where to hang out, shoot dice. When I moved with my aunt, it was like same inner energy within the home. But when I went outside, you just look left and right. There wasn't no strip, wasn't no, because if you remember back in the 80s, a lot of times for white people in the suburbs, if they wanted crack, they had to come down to the hood and find a fiend that they thought they could trust to get them something. Because where I'm from, you know, we didn't have interracial in the 80s in our neighborhoods and things like that. Like our neighborhoods was all black. We saw the cable man and he was a white guy on the pole. Everybody in the neighborhood, oh, that's the police. That's the police. He just undercover. Like nobody would trust it just because it was that segregated. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? There wasn't all this interracial love and things like that back in the 80s. So, uh, with that being said, a lot of times we always knew who was who in our neighborhood.
Well, you know something? I think I grew up in DC, which was all black too. I never went to school
Hmm.
with a white person until college, and
Yep.
everything was different. I mean, and you're used to violence. You're used to getting people getting jumped, your money taken, and but see, people who grow up in the suburbs, they don't understand what the inner city person goes through. I mean, it's fear factor every single day, and what it can either make you or break you. What do you think of that statement there, Gary?
Well, I think that's why a lot of these kids in the suburb are fascinated with it because they can live it out in video games or live it out through the rap lyrics because you don't have to really be in touch with the pain that comes with that. People don't understand all that hood.
Mhm.
Everybody's really trying to get out. Everybody's really trying to get out. It's just the the love and the energy when the community is just that black is what people get attached to. But in all actuality, besides that energy of love and black people and camaraderie and black faces, certain hoods is just all bad, and people really want to get out of there. But you have people who never experienced that, so they don't deal with that pain of lost ones from gangs. They don't deal with that pain of um, going to school with lesser school books or old school books or school books with pages missing. A lot of these kids they take that for granted. And I was in a blessed situation. When I retired, I got into behavior intervention. So I worked in schools in the city, in the suburb. I worked at a school, eighth grade and under. We had 800 kids and everybody got free lunch. So you know where I was at. You get
Free
free
lunch.
breakfast, free lunch, and free after school snack. 800
Oh my
kids every day. So you knew where I was at. you
oh
know.
my goodness.
Now,
Oh,
by me being in the city and my kids when they had like off days, because city have different off days in suburb schools, I would bring them to school with me, let them go to gym class, let them sit in the classroom, let them eat lunch, because I need you to get that up close experience to understand that you know that you do have a blessed life, you have a privileged life. My kids won't have a story of when I came home from practice, sometimes there was nothing to eat. No, you won't. I wish you would get out in the world and say that. You know what I'm saying? You'll never have the you'll never have the I wore my shoes till they had a hole in them story. You'll never have that. You'll never have
or if
that.
you had a good or if you had a good pair of shoes, somebody wanted to take them from you.
Yeah,
I don't know
so
about you though, because you you got a bit.
well, nowadays, man, everything is so sensitive. You know, um, as I've been coaching for many years. My oldest son is 24, so I've been really coaching little league football and little league basketball for about the last 20 years. And I watch a lot of parents be frustrated with their children because their children aren't them. That's one side of it. And the other side where I see a lot of parents be frustrated with children is when you don't like the you that's within your child. Like the stubborn you, the hard-headed you, the won't listen to nobody you. When that's in your child, that's when you frustrate you. But I see a lot of dads, especially in football, because it's an aggressive sport, coached in little league. Dad always want their son to be the toughest, want their son to be later the hardest hit, or want their son just to be the next LeBron James. And a lot of times, what the father hasn't thought about is that child can't be you because he didn't live your conditions. He didn't go through what you went through. The things
That's
that
right.
you went through, the things that everything that you went through up until this moment right now made you into who you are, Kermit. So when a dad want his 8-year-old son to be super thugged out and hard on the football field, but he has never, sometimes, if it's in you, it's in you as far as instinctually just being a dog. But so there's just some dads, and a lot of times I watch in these sporting events where you see all these shootings and beating up referees after games. You know, there's not one college scout out here ranking your child, not one college scout out here, any scouting services. I'd love to meet a scouting service who's ranking third graders, who's paying you for this. So
Right,
Yeah.
right.
just watching people take it to the extreme because a lot of times they want their kids to be what they were, but a lot of times it sounds like you said you went to school in DC, people trying to take your shoes and all that. So that means you went to school in survival mode. I went to school in survival mode. There were days I went to school just so I could make sure I got something to eat. That's survival mode. I'm not feeling spiritual about coming to school, trying to learn, because I'm coming to school with a different purpose and a different need. And a lot of times, if you look at it in the inner cities, like the school I was working at was a sixth grade and under school, and and the other side of the building was a rec center because kids would leave school and go right to the rec center for after school program. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of struggle that that a lot of my kids and a lot of kids I coach they don't understand. So I like to take them to that. I want to give them that experience. I want them to understand the culture.
Yeah, you know what though? They don't really understand it. Just like what you're saying, my brother played pro football and I made pro basketball, but we had nothing. Like we were homeless and we didn't have nothing was nice. And you always
Hmm.
were fearful going to school because they had two gangs. And we laugh now, but it was a junior high school we went to. It was the middle of two gangs. So you had met gang members from both gangs going to the same junior high school. So it was always fearful, always worried
Yeah.
about who's going to get shot, who's going to get stabbed. Could never go to the bathroom. Never go
It
to
was
the
it
bathroom.
was almost the energy of a prison, always the energy of about to erupt.
Oh yes. Oh, all the time. And they were
You,
sensitive.
you
Like
know,
you were
you know what I'm
talking.
saying? You know how like in a prison, at any given moment is always about to erupt.
Oh yes. Oh, I know that. I know that.
I
So
mean, and that's how it is in a lot of times in the hood. It's just like at any given moment, just man. When I worked in schools, I was dealing with like I used to call it Monday madness. Right, every Monday when the kids would come back to school, uh, we will be dealing with like fights that happen on Friday or Saturday or Sunday outside of school. There was one time these two little girls they've been friends since kindergarten. They're in fourth grade now, but they can't be friends at school because their moms got in a fight at the bar this weekend. Like just shenanigans, man. Just stuff that like that has no place in the school, but the community is going to spill over into those places. Is that because this is the community
Yeah.
goes here.
well, tell me, how did you like my kids? First of all, I had two kids, and neither one of them were good in sports because they grew up with too much. They didn't have that hardness that you need to be. You don't find too many rich guys that play pro football come from a very nice family. Usually from a dysfunctional family or they're in need. Like my brother would say, because he played pro football, he says, I don't care if I break my neck. I'm not going to live like this. I'm going to, whatever it takes for me to succeed, I'm willing to do.
I can understand that because you got to realize certain chances that you take out here in the streets, throwing rocks at the penitentiary is just like breaking your neck in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Because you could get shot, you could get killed. So he was looking at it with that same level of energy. Like, I don't care what it's taking. Something getting ready to change. So I can see why he would feel like that.
Well, how did you change? I mean, because of the environment, how did you tell us about your high school and how you started playing and when you went to college? Because that was a different environment altogether.
When I went to high school, um, I got removed my freshman year, so I dropped out. I dropped out of school, and I told the assistant principal we didn't have a phone number. We didn't have a phone, so he told me my mom needed to call for me to get back in school. So I went home and told my mom what happened, and I said they said you got to call for me to get back in school, but don't call them because I don't want to go back yet. So she never called him. You know what I'm saying? She was getting. I mean, my mom was getting high or whatever. She didn't even really care. So I sat out of school for a minute, and then we got this little letter in the mail, about the No Child Left Behind. I didn't know about it at that time because this is like '88, and I was thinking like, man, if I don't go back to school, my mom will go to jail. Now I'm 14 at the time, but I got a 9-year-old sister, so I'm like, man, if mom go to jail, my sister's gonna be messed around. So I'm like, okay, so I started going back to school, had a truant officer and all this stuff. But the thing started boiling over at the house with me and my mom. Just I was tired of, we had one of them houses where like, my mom knew everybody in the neighborhood and everybody knew our family name and my dad because he was a kingpin. So, you could go over up the street somewhere and buy some crack and come over our house and use it. You know what I'm saying? So just any and anybody was hanging out all the time.
And
And
so,
it
yeah.
got to the point where I left that home and moved with my aunt. And I got into this school called Hamilton Township when I was living out in the suburbs with her. So I ended up going to school, and one day I missed the school bus. So some guys in the neighborhood said, man, just ride with us. We'll give you a ride home. Just come to open gym. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go out, play some open gym, and the high school coach tell me, hey, you look athletic. You should try out for the team. Okay. So I try out for the team. I make JV. This is my first time, doing a real tryout or something. So boom, I make JV. I played first half of the game. I scored 20. So
First
he
half.
was like, yeah, the first half of the JV game, just on some high energy, just all high energy and athletic ability and just aggression
Yeah.
and strength.
How
This is
big were you at this time?
how old?
How
How
big?
big? How big were you?
I'm
Size.
about 6'3". I'm about 6'3", 6'2" and a half at the time. I'm 15 years old. This is the first time I've ever played with referees and a whistle.
Yeah.
Like this first
Country,
time.
country strong.
Right.
Yeah, I just played. It's the first time I ever played with referees and a whistle, and I played the
Just
first
went at
half
it.
because back then you could play like I think it was either 4 or 5 quarters total per night. So some guys would play like 2 JV, 2 varsity quarters like that.
Hmm.
So I moved up, but there was a couple of guys on the team. I was new to the neighborhood. They was some ball hogging guys, and they was buddy balling me out, and still some segregation a little bit at the time, and so they was buddy balling me out. So I had a little decent little season. That was my first time playing. So I come back my junior year, and one of those guys was ineligible. So now the guy had the buddy ball with me. Now I turn around, average like 24 and 12, make first team all state. And, now I'm really starting to play basketball all the time now. I'm taking it serious at the playground, but I never had anybody helping me work on my game. I used to just get up, go to the playground and just work on different type of dunks. Nobody ever told me, but
Yeah.
I did my first crossover when I got to college. Like really, I never studied the game of basketball as a kid. I watched it. We had a lot of family in California, so I was always a Lakers fan, and Magic Johnson was just my favorite player. So I had the purple weapons and everything. So I watched the game, but I didn't understand execution, and I just watched it. And nobody taught me anything really till I got to college. I started working on little drop steps and moves like that. But then my senior year, I come back, get state player of the year. But the problem was I was still having a troubled household. So,
Was
I'm
nobody
arguing with,
helping you? Was nobody helping you? And no man, no coach, or helping you with food and just
no, here's the beautiful thing. My high school coach, Randy Cotner, before I even really took off anything as far as anything in basketball, he was my math teacher and all that. So, he would help me out. And like sometimes he'd drop me off after practice and be like, what are you eating for dinner? I'll be like, man, I'm not gonna have anything to eat. I'm probably gonna go get me something. And go get me something. They know I'm gonna go steal something. Right. So so he like, well, why don't you just come and stay with me tonight? So, I would stay the night at his house, do homework, and at that point in time, it was just him and his wife, but they didn't have any kids. And I'm like 15 at the time. So, it was a great experience for me because, those people wrapped their hands around me really before I became anything. So, it was really just really trying to help dig this black kid out of a hole. And then the next guy that
Were
really,
they white or were they
there
white?
was a white family, it was
Okay.
white man. And then the next man that grabbed his arms around me was our athletic director, Miss Mark Bagro. He kind of started helping coach, you know, if I needed a little tutoring after school, sometimes, man, them guys would even slip me an extra lunch ticket, knowing that I, was just hungry and things of that nature. So, they really, once those two guys really kind of put their arms around me, um, then the school, then the rest of the staff and them kind of, the principal and those guys took a, try to put their arms around me. But I was still rough around the edges at times, getting in fights, and they trying to help me, and they know I mean well, but at the same time, I still got to do what I got to do and be me out here at this time at 15 and represent myself, in my mind at least. So, because at that point in time, I was still struggling. I'm selling dope and stealing every day, and things of that nature. My aunt, I'm selling her dope, her husband dope. I was selling my mom crack. So, my first customer base really was my household, my mom.
Mm,
So,
mm.
I was dealing with that, dealing with no dad, dealing with really no male role model. So, those guys really, um, they were living at that point in time, I would consider their life a sterile life. Like, well, you guys just get to work, come home every day. Like, what do you guys do? Y'all ain't outside, y'all ain't in the streets. Like, y'all just do this. Like, not understanding that's what life is. You don't be cruising the avenue every day, hanging out on the block, and like, why y'all just go home every day after work? That's all.
No chaos, and so
Yeah, y'all, man. Listen, man. The funniest thing. So, I was staying with my coach. I was going over there a couple times, probably like once or twice a month, and I couldn't explain it to him. So one day I was like, man, coach, I really couldn't say y'all live white. I didn't know how to say that. So at that point in time, I was like, man, coach, when I be over your house, I feel like I'm gonna leave it to Beaver. Because how I just that's how I tried to explain it to him, because it was so sterile, it was quiet. They
Yeah.
didn't have just him and his wife. There was no other kids. So if you sat over there, if they went to their bedroom, you would be like, don't hear anything. I said, over my house, you got the TV going, somebody running in and out. My uncle stay there too with my aunt, her husband. So you just used to you used to sleeping through the. If you live next to a train, you get used to sleeping through that noise.
That's true, that's true.
yeah.
What you're saying is so funny because, like, when I grew up, my brother and I, well, it was not a happy household, but I was telling somebody else, we never had blinds on the window. My grandmother
Mhm.
would never let us have a pillow. There was no air conditioning back there, you know that.
Oh
And so we
yeah.
never, and they let you take a shower once a week. My grandma said, "You can't be taking no shower every day, boy. What's wrong with you?" So maybe that. Then I went to college. There was air conditioning. I had a pillow. I had a bed that I fit in.
Man,
It was
that
like a
dorm room was Bel Air for you.
oh, it was a different world. Wait. I had never had breakfast. I was like you. We had never had breakfast before. I went to
Yeah.
college. I looked at them, and you had pancakes, you had scrambled eggs, you had bacon, you had muffins. I said, "This is heaven." I gained 80 pounds in 4 years of college because I could finally eat. I couldn't believe it. It's
Hey,
like a different world.
when I graduated from high school, I was 210 pounds. 3 years later, when I got drafted, I was 250.
The
Yeah,
food is good in college.
man. Well, just having a meal plan
Oh, yeah.
and and having a meal plan, consistent food, training. It's so funny that so many people in my family have been to prison, right? Even when I was off at college, my mom used to send me food boxes. Because back in the day, when inmates wanted stuff, you had to buy clothing with no label, and you could send canned goods. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? You could ship food into the prison. My mom used to mail me all kind of, like, I used to eat peanut butter and honey sandwiches. I thought that was gonna make me gain weight, and I used to drink them
Mhm.
Ensures. So I was like, man, because I always thought I was skinny as a kid.
Oh man, I'm telling you, it was different getting a chance to eat. I mean, I gained 80 pounds in college because I had never been able to eat before. And
Not consistently.
oh no, no. And then there was no violence in college.
Right.
I
Yeah,
it was just I was so used to violence all the time. Like you walk down the street of DC, you have a nice jacket, you see guys coming, you got to turn around because
yeah,
they ain't gonna let you just walk by them with something nice pair of shoes
Right.
or that, unless you was a big man, and I wasn't. I said, Lord have mercy, here they come. I'm turning around and go to school. Nobody could go to the
Yeah.
bathroom because the guys are in the bathroom and they go in there, they're gonna harass you. So
yeah.
I finally, when did you start lifting weights, Gary?
In high school, we got on this little weight program, and here was the program. You would just do 2 sets of 10 on every body part. We like 15, so I go in there, do 2 sets of 10 on the bench, 2 sets of 10 on the leg press, 2 sets of 10 on everything in the gym. And that was just the Donkey Kong workout of the day. You couldn't get no stronger, just doing two
No,
sets of
no.
10 of everything, right? That was so this our workout, I know 15-year-old workout. This is what they gave us on the little sheet at school. So I was already introduced to it, the weight room a little bit like that. So, you know, my senior year, going into my senior year, I was playing in the summer leagues and things locally, and I got invited to a couple of them big time camps. At that point in time, it was Dave Kreider at Cincinnati and Five
Mhm.
Star. Those
Oh
were the
yeah,
big
5 star.
camps.
Yeah.
But um, what ended up happening, I Cincinnati came down to look at me, and they looked at my transcripts, and I had like a 1.2 GPA going into my senior year. So I wasn't even going to graduate, little known be ready for no go to college. So what happened when I got invited to those camps, I never got a chance to go because I had to go to summer school to make up for all those classes that I missed out on my freshman year. From all that school I had quit, I had to make up my freshman credits. So when I made up my freshman credits, when you go to summer school, it's like a 6-week class, and if you miss
Mhm,
like 3 days, you're done because they saying like that 6 weeks is condensing a whole school year into it.
mhm.
So I couldn't miss, and I had to go to both sessions. So to me, it was like, what's the use in going to the camps, getting ranked, trying to be getting my name out there, and I ain't even gonna go to college anyway if I don't do this part of it. And my high school coach and athletic director, I had been getting some little small letters locally from mid majors, and Coach Hunter, who was at Ohio University, he had been recruiting me all along. So one night he was called me on the phone while I was, having this argument and fiasco at home with my aunt. I was crying and stuff. And this is how I simply went to college. So he called and I said, we was in the conversation. I said, Coach, are y'all Division One? Like, can y'all play schools like Ohio State and Michigan? He was like, yeah, we can play those schools. Now I didn't know what it was called at the time. So I said, hey, you know that big tournament that everybody playing? I said, can y'all play in that? He was like, the NCAA tournament? I was like, yeah, that tournament that they always talk about, because I had never knew what it was called. He was like, yes. He said, Gary, if we get the right players at Ohio University, we could win a national championship here, just like the one you see on TV. I said, do y'all play on TV? He says, well, if we get to the NCAA tournament or the conference championship, we could get on TV. I said, okay, I'll come to OU. Just like that over the phone. I had never even met the man. That's just that I was going through so much at home, and I just knew, okay, after high school, you're supposed to go to college. So I had never even met the man. So that's how I went to college. I committed over the phone as a junior in high school before my senior year. And, I came back my senior year and I started, putting up a whole bunch of buckets and stuff. And I started getting some bigger letters. But, here's how I met the coach. So I'm in the summer league. I come off a big time game, about 40 points or so. And a guy comes to me and says, "That was a great game, Gary." I said, "Oh, thank you." And he says, "Yeah, I'm Coach Hunter." I said, "Oh, hey, Coach, what's up?" Like, that's how I met him. I already signed my life away to this man and shaking
Right.
his hand about to walk off. And he come up to me and had to introduce himself. And I'm already done committed to the man. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, now tell me this. If you hadn't committed to him, what school, and if you had the grades, what school would you have gone to? What college?
Kermit, to be honest, I didn't know anything about going to college. My mom is the oldest of seven. All of them been in prison. None of them graduated from high school. So that's 7 peers. My dad was the youngest of 3. None of them graduated or went to college. So that's 10 people. Then you got both sides of grandparents, which would be 14 people. So I'm the first grandson, first nephew, and everything because my mom was the oldest. So out of them 14 peers, I'm the 15th. None of them knew about college or had been to college. Everybody been to prison. Everybody sells dope. Everybody hustles. So I never even thought about any of that type of stuff. I never thought about college. I never knew that was the next step in life. And nobody talked about that in my
Mm.
household as a kid, or even you couldn't even get that conversation at our cookouts. Nobody graduated from high school. Who's talking about college?
Yeah, it was not even a
Yeah.
reality in your
Well,
world,
the
huh?
conversation was always who's coming home from prison, who on their
Right.
way, who got to go see their PO. Just always jail talk, street talk, because everybody in my family was just gangstered out. That's just what it was. That
Yeah.
was just the era they came from, and that's what they chose to
Yeah.
be. So,
You know, I've
you'll hear somebody in the family every now and then shoot something out there once you older. Well, make sure you get good grades in school. All right, you get your grades good. Here go a couple dollars for some good grades. But that was
right.
about the extent of it because they knew what grades meant. But they had already made the choices in life of what they was going to become. So
Yeah.
nobody was really, beating that, drumming that to me. So I didn't have any, man, listen, I didn't know nothing about, Jordan and the Patrick Ewing playing in the Carolina. If I never watched college basketball, the first college basketball I ever heard of was that Alley Oop and Orangeman. And that was Derek Coleman and those
Mhm.
guys when I first heard of them and Sherman Douglas. That was like the first time I had watched a basketball game. That was the first game I had like really watched in college. And
Yeah.
I really started paying attention to basketball real tough. Once I started playing in 10th grade, Jimmy Jackson was a
Yeah.
McDonald's All-American, top 5
Mhm.
player in the nation, and he was going to Ohio State.
Right.
So
Mhm.
every time I would do something, I was going to the paper to look for me. Like every time I would open up the sports page to see what I might have did, they always had something about the Buckeyes because Ohio is the Buckeye State. That's the name of it. So, and I live in Columbus, Ohio, where Ohio State is. So every time I open the paper, it was something about Jimmy Jackson. And then, once they go past the college, they'll go to the local high school stuff. So in looking for myself, I fell in love with always reading something about Jim and how he was. So I was like kind of lining myself up with what Jimmy was doing. Like every time he was getting an award and dominating, I was getting an award for what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
you know,
He was your benchmark.
yeah, he was just a big influence. I didn't know him or nothing at that time. I just was following him. And,
Yeah.
in our hometown, the Buckeyes are the top of the food chain besides the dope dealers, you know.
Mhm.
But I just was, always following him, looking for myself, and that's how I fell in love with what he had going on. And, I started paying attention to the Buckeyes and things of that nature. But they didn't recruit me, and they didn't recruit me. I think for a couple reasons. They knew in Columbus probably what we were. You know what I'm saying? As far as my lifestyle, me selling dope, and what would have, right there in the city, we selling dope on Ohio State campus back in high school. So you know what I'm saying? Like, boy, we can't recruit this man. He just gonna move 2 blocks over with the same people up here. That might have been, the biggest thing because all my family lived on Short North area, which is Ohio State campus. My uncle caught a murder over there, 2 blocks from campus.
Mm.
So it was just a whole lot of stuff. Like to bring me to campus, you was gonna bring everybody to campus that didn't have no business up there campus.
Oh my.
So, but more importantly, from a political standpoint, I didn't go to those camps, so I didn't get the national ranking. And You know, at one point in time, if you was Mr. Basketball out of Indiana, it was like you had to be cold because just Mr. Basketball in Indiana meant everything. And they had a guy named Charles Killer Macon that was Mr. Basketball Indiana, McDonald's All-American. I think he was a top 10 player. So to bring him in at the power forward position looked way better than bringing in Gary Trent, who was a state player of the year in Ohio. Even though I lived in Columbus and whatnot and things of that nature, just from a political standpoint, you know how on ESPN they be like your recruiting class strength. You know, you probably
Yeah.
signing a McDonald's All-American might be worth 10 points. Signing me might have been worth 3 or 4 points at that time. So it looked better just on paper to say I got, you know, and they had Greg Simpson, who was another. So you got 2 McDonald's All-Americans coming in. So, you know, just from a standpoint of being a big time program, that's what you're trying to do.
Well,
So,
tell
you
me
know,
what it was. Yeah, that's incredible. Tell me what it was like when
Randy
you went.
Ayers was the coach at the time. You know, Randy Ayers in the league
Oh,
now.
Yeah,
yes. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
What was it like when you went to college now, in a different now, how far is Ohio University away from where you lived?
Well, it's about 85 miles southeast. You know, at that point in time, they done opened up the roads and done a lot of things over the last 30 years. So the ride might take about 60 to 65 minutes now, where at one point in time it was like almost a 2-hour ride because you had to ride through winding roads. And there's a couple of small towns that if you ain't doing 25, you can go and make sure you getting a ticket. You know, they set it up like that. You know, on them, like it just you will go from a highway to just a little town 25 after you coming off 60, and you're
Yeah.
gonna do about 3 miles of 25 and then get back to 60. But they you know what I'm saying? It ain't even a speed trap. It just we ain't even gotta have police posted. We just know somebody gonna speed through here unless you know this area. So, you know, it was far enough away from home where I could go and grow on my own, but it wasn't too far.
Well, what was it like when you went on campus from where you came from?
It was a total different experience. It was a blessing for me, right? My coach and them knew I was selling dope and I was still involved in a lot of stuff. So I graduated on a Friday. I partied hard Saturday. Sunday, I packed up all my stuff in his minivan and he dropped me off at college Sunday night. And I
Mm.
was working and I was working. I had a job 8 a.m. Monday.
Oh,
Listen, they
wow.
weren't gonna let me not have structure in my life or they knew it was gonna wreck it.
Yeah.
So I graduated Friday. I had a job 8 a.m. I was painting houses. You know, it was a guy who was, you know, he owned a lot of real estate in the university area, and he told me I just need you to chip it and paint it. And dude was paying me $6 an hour.
Mm. Did you live on campus?
Well, this is before school started. So what I did while I was down there, that's when I first got introduced to weights. You know, because you know, coach was like, you know, I was down there lifting, and I started getting on the meal program, and I joined this little summer program for minorities. So what it does is it lets me go to class a couple days a week, an hour here, hour there, hour here, hour there, just to kind of introduce you to what college would be. Take a
Mhm.
class, and I ended up getting 5 hours of credit.
College
Of,
credit.
yeah, a B credit though, because I got an overall B, little B plus. So I had coming into school, I had 5 hours of B plus coming in, which helped me get off to a good start, you know, because that was I went to a school where it was like 23,000 students, but when there was no school, it was only like 6,000 people in the town.
Mm.
So, you know, during the summers when I was down there and when the football team is down there, it's real just empty at that point in time, you know, because you know how the football team has to report in July for 2 days and all those things. So I was down there with a lot of the football guys and I ended up wanting to go out for the football team. And I started lifting over there with the football team, started training and doing all this, right? So one day, my college coach says, I was like, man, I'm gonna play football, coach. He was like, okay, go ahead. So I told him I was gonna play football. So I started working out with the team, training, lifting, running. I guess he thought I was just talking because that was one of my first sports. Because you know, I played football in 6th grade through 8th grade, and then I was a swimmer and diver from 4th grade to 9th grade. Those was my first sport, swimming and diving.
Mhm. A black person can swim. That's amazing.
Listen, man,
You're probably the
that's
only
all
one
I
in your
did.
family.
That's all I did was swim and dove. That was my thing. I loved Greg Louganis. That was my guy. Watching him, I used to try to copycat everything. I was doing all 2.5s. I was doing gainers, everything off the diving board.
You know,
But
I knew him because he lived in San Diego and he went to Valhalla High School. So I used to
um,
when I was playing for the Clippers, I met him a couple of times. Great guy. But the guy he was
yeah,
with was not too a great guy though. That's
yeah.
a long story. That's another story. Go ahead.
Once I started, lifting off at college, and I got down there, and I got that little program. That's what really introduced me to college. So now, come late September, because mind you, now I graduated high school at 17.
Mhm.
So I'm off at college at 17. I don't turn 18 until after school start because my birthday come September 22nd. So school start like September 20th. So I'd already been down there living at the campus June, July, August. So I'd already been down there about 3, 4 months. So by the time the students got there, I'd already knew the layout of campus. I wasn't walking around like asking where's this building and things of that nature. But once the students got there, they put you in an athlete dorm, and a lot of the guys were in my dorm were football players and basketball players and some general students. So it give you a little mixture. And I adjusted a little bit. I knocked a couple guys' heads loose early on because people didn't. It just happens. Football players be getting slippery at the lips a couple times, and then people don't know you, so they think some guys just don't know you. So I had a couple of incidents, and my coach had asked me one time, "Did you get in a fight or something?" He seen my hands, and I was like, I just told him what happened. Man, college was cool for me from that standpoint, but my coach wasn't playing as far as our workout. But we didn't have a budget. You remember East Bay? You remember that magazine?
Yeah, yeah. They just now shut that down.
Yeah. My school didn't have no sponsorship. We wore Nikes, but we didn't have a Nike deal. Me and another guy on the team named Jason Terry, we both wore 16s. Man, they bought our shoes out of East Bay. That's how low budget our school was.
Oh, wow. They just bought
Yes,
it as they needed it, huh?
yeah, out the magazine because there was no internet. We flipping
Right.
through the magazine trying to get some college
Yeah.
basketball shoes.
Then you gotta call, make sure they got
Yeah,
some.
that's
Oh,
how small time our program was at that point in time when I was there.
Do everything like you love me, and other things like a real G. I don't need nothing you do for me, it's all good, just love me. Do everything like you love me, and other things like a real G. I don't need nothing you do for me, it's all good, just love me. Just love me.
okay. Now, when you first go there and your first day you practice with the team, were you the best player on the team?
No, I was probably one of the best athletes and one of the most athletic, but I was not the best at all. And from a standpoint, when I say best, I'm talking about everything that you need to be a complete player. I didn't know how to execute. My teammates used to call me coconut because, like, we'll listen, Kermit, we'll walk through a play. We'll walk through a play. We'll walk through a play. As soon as coach say go live, I, all this back screen, do this, go over here. So I just said, okay, so you trying to give me a back screen so that I can get to the post? Okay, cool. Once I got lost, just run straight to the post. And I just was strong enough to really break the play. So we just start kind of like running 4 out 1 in. And and all my teammates be like, we'll walk through it. Coaches like say, how you shoot around, just like NBA shoot around. You walk through it, then go live one time. Soon as it's time to go live, I cut something wrong, and my teammates be like, "Come on, coconut, man." You know,
Yeah, that reminds me. Do you remember? Did they ever tell you about Billy Ray Bates when I played with him in Portland? You ever hear history? I mean, stories about Billy Ray Bates?
uh-uh.
No. Billy Ray Bates played. I was with him when he was a Portland Trailblazers. He had the record. Now listen to this of the highest average in the playoffs of a guy coming off the bench. I think it was about 27, 28 points a game. He played with us from probably 1979 to 82. Um, one of the greatest athletes I've ever played with. And I played with over, gosh, hundreds of players. He was about 6'3", could palm the ball, 225. And when he joined the Portland Trailblazers, he joined them from something like Lumberjack, some place we don't know where he came from, what he came from. But the first day he came there, Jack Ramsey was running him up and down and making him do about 20 or 30 sprints because he was coming from a minor league team, Lumberjacks or something like that. And he was built like a fullback, like a line. I mean, he was as
Yeah,
strong.
when you said 6'3", 225, I'm like, yep.
He was something
Yeah.
else. The problem, Gary, is funny. I loved him to death, and the fans loved him to death, but he had alcohol problems, drug
Mm,
problems, and women problems. But
mm,
you know what, though? He was an unbelievable athlete. Was not afraid of anything. He could
yeah.
palm the ball. One time he had like 10 dunks against the Lakers one time, one game. And it was just incredible. He would just dunk on Kareem, all of them. He was just such an athletic player, but you couldn't remember the plays. So what we had to do, a 1-4. When he came in, we couldn't call a play because he didn't know the plays. And we would go through them, but just give him the ball, just get a 1-4, get out of his way.
Yep.
Everybody go to the baseline, and he would just go and be dunking on people. Great athlete.
Yeah.
Look him up after we get off. Look him up, Billy Ray Bates on the internet, on the internet.
The,
Just
the
you'll see.
old 1-4 low.
A one for yes, because he
Yeah.
couldn't remember the play. He couldn't. I could
Yeah.
tell you stories about him. And so, finish telling us about you and how you became so good in college.
Well, okay. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the high school part where so here's why my field goal percentage is what it is. I
81.
shot I shot 81.4 from the floor, but here's why. I didn't have any skill. I was all fast break layups, all putbacks, all alley-oop dunks, or all alley-oop layups. I wouldn't shoot a shot unless I shot it off the backboard because everything I did was off the backboard. You know what I'm saying? Or basically over the front of the rim, as far as like basically not dunking it, but laying it in, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, the reason why nobody will ever break it is because everybody is so concerned with being skilled and having a jumper and having this and having that. I wouldn't shoot anything that wasn't a shot going off the glass. So if it was a
Mm.
reverse layup, a straight up layup, it had to touch the glass or I had to be dunking it. So that because I didn't have any moves. I didn't know about drop steps and spin moves and turnaround jumpers. I just was bulldozing my way to the basket all the time. Even when I got to college, my first like year and a half, all my teammates was like, "Man, all you got is the trudge move." The trudge move was listen. Is it
He
called the
was
trudge
making
move?
them.
Get the ball, two hard dribbles with the left shoulder, and go up on the jump hook joint. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's every right-hander's go-to move in the post. Two dribbles, left shoulder. And that was
Yeah.
my go-to joint. Boom, two sonic. I'm talking about sonic boom dribbles, and just try to go up and dunk. Because I think my freshman year in college, my first year, I shot like 60 from the floor too.
Mhm.
Because I just still was in that stuck in layup mode because I didn't have game. And then as I, was off in college, I started understanding game and coach started watching film because, one time I had a game where I had like 25 and 14 as a freshman, and we won the game.
Mm.
So, coach coming there and, it's one of them breakout game things. And coach like, yeah, you think you had a great game, huh, Gary? Yeah, I'm like, yeah, coach, it was cool. Da, da, da. Man, that man shows so much lock knee defense, no help side, all kind of gambling, no block out. You just want to out jump everybody. All the bad habit stuff, man. You would
Yeah.
have thought we lost by 20 with the way the film session went. You know what I'm saying? But as a basketball, but when I look at it, I'm like, damn, I ain't blocking out. I'm doing everything he said had me almost looking at myself like, man, what is you doing? All I'm thinking about is the 25 and 14, and we got a W, all that extra. What we talking about it for?
So
So
how many? Okay, that
when
was
I
your
say,
freshman. Yeah.
was I the best on the team? I was not the best on the team because I wasn't a complete player because I never played any of the game from a mental standpoint. I played the game all physical and all bull strength. You
Mm.
know, actually the coach that is at Ohio University now, Jeff Bowles, was my teammate. He's the head coach at the university now. He was probably our best player on the team. And the reason why I say that at that time he was our best player because he was the smartest. Like anytime guys can take charges and things of that nature. That means you see the game a step faster. Anytime you just always in the right place for a charge, anytime you're always in the right place for a block out using fundamental skills, he was our best player at that time because we always used to have this joke because he had like tore his knee in high school, then he tore his knee as freshman, his other knee. So I'm playing with a guy that's playing with 2 knee braces.
Mm.
And it was to the point where we made this little joke. He was like, man, I need your athletic ability and you need my brains. And that was our little joke because he played so fundamental, but I did everything above the rim that he wanted, but he didn't have that level of athletic ability. So he blocked out properly. He was the only one taking charges. I wasn't taking no charge. I'm about to try to block it. That's what I come with to
That's
do.
true.
you know, so uh so I'd say at that point in time, I became our best player probably midway through my sophomore year. I just transitioned. It just as practice went, I just kept going and going and going. And one thing that I think really helped me, Kermit, I had a messed up home life. So during the summers, I wasn't coming home. I was staying in school. So I went to college right after graduation, did my freshman year, stayed at campus, worked out, took a little class, drove to my hometown 2 days a week to play in the summer league, but I still was taking class Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I was driving back to campus. So then I go into my sophomore year. Then I do the same thing during the summer. Then I go into my junior year. Then I turn pro. So I wasn't really coming home during the summers because things were still risky and sensitive for me to be hanging out at home. And I was still training and I still was trying to evolve as a player because even, for the success I had in college, I still wasn't polished up skill wise. I was just still getting my little elbow jumper together and still trying to get a handle and really, right when I was starting to dominate college, um, I go to the draft, and now you at the bottom of the food chain. It's about starting all the way over. Like you damn near starting over infancy stage, depending on what type of program you come from and what type of athletic ability and size you have on your body.
So when you got to, well, you were, what number were you drafted? What number first round?
11th pick.
Yeah, 11th
Oh,
pick. That's
so
pretty good.
how
That's
how early did you know that NBA was on the horizon for you?
I talked a lot of trash about going to the league, but it came to a real opportunity my sophomore year. At the end of my sophomore year, people, agents was throwing little baits and you should come out, but I would have been a low pick. So,
yeah.
I was like, let me see what happens one more year. When I really thought I had a chance to go to the league was my freshman year. At the end of my freshman year, I got all freshman team and I got first team all conference, and I was the fourth person in NCAA history to get Conference Player of the Year and Freshman Player of the Year. Wayman Tisdale, Keith Lee, Karl Malone were the first three, and then I was number four.
Hmm.
So when I picked up USA Today, they had the All-American freshman team. It was Scotty Thurman, Othello Harrington, uh, myself, Johnny Rose, and Jason Kidd. So when I
Mm.
saw that, I was like, man, they really seeing what I'm doing down here. I'm like, that's the freshman All-American team. So that's the best freshman. So I'm like, if I just stay amongst these guys in 4 years, I could be a top 10 pick. And that was when it really hit me that I had a chance when I seen that USA Today ranking.
So tell me this. So after you got drafted, were you drafted by the Portland Trailblazers or were you traded? I was trying.
I was drafted by Milwaukee. And
That's
they
right.
traded me and Sean Reshford at the draft because my draft class was Joe Smith was number one, McDyess was number two, Stackhouse was three, Rasheed was number four, Garnett was five. You had Big Country was in there with six, Damon Stoudemire. No, Damon was sixth, and Big Country was seven. Sean Reshford was eight, had O'Bannon at nine, Kurt Thomas was 10, and I was myself 11. Then Cherokee Parks and Corliss Williamson. So we had a solid class of guys. There was a solid class of guys that really came out that year. And I think Sheed and Jerry were sophomores. McDyess was a sophomore. Joe was a freshman. Kevin was a high schooler. So we had a young core of guys come out.
Yeah.
So when you got to pros, Where do you, first of all, I lived in Portland for a long. Where did you live in? Lake Oswego, probably.
Yep, Lake Oswego, and we used to practice at Lewis and Clark at that little small college.
Yes, yes, yes. But they practice a lot of nice places now. But you know what? You never saw an empty seat though. I guess you're in Portland. At Golden.
Well, the beautiful thing was I never played at the Coliseum. When my first NBA game in Portland, it was called the Rose Garden.
So the
Now it's the
roast.
Moda
Oh,
Center. It's the Moda Center now, but I my first NBA game was in the Rose Garden. That's what it's called. 'Cause, Portland is the city of roses. So it used to be called the Rose Garden. It was a brand new arena. It was brand new technology. Paul Allen had put all that acoustic stuff up in there, and this like '95. So that was the first game that I had played was the Rose Garden. Um, so now it's called the Moda. So we played there, but I used to live in Lake Oswego because it was closer to the practice.
yeah,
You know,
practice facilities. Yeah.
so that was good. That was I bought me a house and things like that, and it was pretty cool. I think it was a great place for me, coming from where I came from and my expectations of thinking what life was. Because a lot of times, Portland wasn't really a fast paced city. It wasn't really cracking like that. Sometimes as a rookie coming out to getting drafted to New York or getting drafted to Atlanta or California and you haven't lived that or you are not ready for that and you got a whole bunch of money and all this, man, it's a lot of treachery going on as far as setups and things of that nature that a lot of young people, when we were coming in, it wasn't as much awareness as it is now. You got all the NBA programs as far as financial programs, internship opportunities. You got when you come to teams now, they know these teams guys are coming in young, so they got certain divisions of their office to help you look for housing and all those things. A lot of times back in the day, man, you had to pull up and do it on your own.
Oh yeah.
Unless you was somebody special, you had to go look for your stuff like just any other old pedestrian out here. You wasn't about to get no love. The team tell you, hey, we got 15 realtors. Most guys stay here, and here go a couple of safe places, and here we got this relationship with this car lot. Man, you was doing everything as a la carte independent at one point in
Mhm.
time.
Okay, now here's a big question. When you started making money, how about your family? Did they come all start coming after you?
Well, they was already coming, because one thing about the NBA or sports money, is posted publicly what you're worth. So, you can't just tell somebody, oh, I ain't got it right now, or blah blah blah. At one point in time, man, I was under so much emotional pressure as a youngster. I used to be lying. Like, I would just tell friends or family, I get a check every quarter, every 90 days. So, um, what I'll do is, if you need to borrow some or whatever, just see what you can come up with by the time I get my next installment or something, man, and then just holler at me, because I just couldn't tell them no. And then as I got older and I got to the point where I was mature enough and I saw a lot of it was just abuse to where people think you're gonna be an ATM or whatever, it just got to the point where I just be like, no. And then it just got to the point where when I see that's what all you calling about, I don't even take your call no more.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of ball players don't answer the phone because they
Well,
know you.
I had to ask a lot of family, do you love me or do you love what I can do for you?
Yeah.
Because, a lot of times you only hear from somebody when they want something or need something. And I had to tell a lot of people, hey, I got a 10-digit phone number, not a 3-digit. Y'all dialing me 911. Every time somebody wrecked their car, oh, let me call. Hey, man, I wrecked my car. Or every time somebody about to get evicted, or every time somebody about to go back to school, like, why I only come to mind when you in a 911 situation? Because when you got your money and I heard about you in Atlanta or this or that, you ain't tell me, hey, I'm ready to go to Atlanta. You want to go? No. I didn't hear none of that. So I don't want to hear none of that now. My biggest problem with people was don't play the bass drum when you borrow my money and then play the violin when I come and ask for it. Because when they borrow that money, boom, yeah, I need to borrow the money, man. I'm gonna pay you back next week. As soon as I get my check, boom, yeah, all I need is it. You hear the bass, but then when you come for your money, hey, what's up with that little money? Now you hear the violin. Oh man, I really ain't got it right now. And now I'm hearing the violin music. I don't know where that bass that you was playing when you was borrowing it. I don't. If I wanted to hear the violin music, I'd be at the orchestra. Where the bass at?
So tell me how your son is making it then. Do they go? Do they ask for?
Well, that's what I was gonna say is that's got to be a huge advantage for Gary Jr. to have you in his corner knowing what that minefield looks like.
But here's the thing, though. See, my mom was the oldest of 7, so everybody in my family got a chance to babysit me. Everybody got a chance to change a diaper on me. Everybody, I done lived with different family members. I done lived with different other family members done lived with me. We lived real village and community style. So I was emotionally tied in with everybody to where, like, my mom had 5 brothers, right? Now I had a Nike deal. How am I going to show up with one uncle to bring him a couple pair of Jordans and a couple sweatsuits? As soon as the other 4 see him, they going, hey, nephew, what happened to me?
That's
So it
exactly
was
right.
like, it was one of them. I was in a situation where I had to buy all or nothing, and I couldn't buy them nothing. My heart wouldn't allow me to have that much at my fingertips and not share that with them. And people coming home from prison wearing shoes and clothes that they never had. Like I just couldn't do that. So um, a lot of people get to the point where they aren't able to appreciate it. But with my son, when I got custody of him in about 9, 10 years old, we moved to Minnesota. So those emotional pressures from people, oh, I grew up with you, or you was my boy, or we struggled together, or we slept in the same bed. He don't have none of that. He don't have those relationships to where people could emotionally lean on him and make him feel guilty for anything. Because when he moved here to Minnesota, did nobody from Ohio help him? Was nobody coming to really support him from Ohio, coming to his games? Was nobody sending him clothes? Not that they needed to, because he was
Right.
good, but I'm just saying, did nobody do anything to where they could come back later and try to emotionally manipulate him? Number one,
Yeah.
I kept him purposely from that type of stuff. Secondly, I educated him on all of those things before my son even got to the pros as a kid, just explaining to him within stories of why me and this family member had a problem. I
Yeah.
said, and I would explain to him why. So now that he's in the pros, and now he got not even so much in the pros, now that you got money, because you could have hit the lottery and still have these same issues and been pro football, pro basketball. It's the issue is not your sport. The issue is that you're a person with money.
Right.
Okay, were you hard on your son? I mean, because we were talking about this before we got on the air. How tough were you on your son to try to protect him and make him prepared for the world that he was going to face?
Well, there's a very thin line between being stern and being hard. I was always stern, and I was always stern about your character, stern about being disciplined, stern about working at something, and when you at practice, being the leader. When you at practice, being the guy that's gonna, whether you're gonna win the race or not. If dude beat you in that race, he gonna have to throw up to beat you because you tried to throw up to beat him. I was always stood on that with no grounds given, because to me, you need that throughout life, not just for sport. You need that to be in a competitive mind state when you're in the job world, to be in a competitive mind state in your classroom. So that was just something that I always stood on, just from him as a person and as a kid. Chores around the house, discipline, and things of that nature. Because my son was so involved in sports and things of that nature, I aligned a lot of academics and sports with the same values. Like, first off, you're not going to play if your academics is not together. Because I took him off the team one time. My son made varsity in 8th grade. Tyus
Mhm.
Jones was on the team at the time, and they was making a good run in the playoffs. And I went to my son's parent-teacher conference, and he had about 3 C's on his report card. They was talking about how he kind of punch out early, because the high school started practice from 2:30 to 4:30. Well, my son didn't get out of school until 3 o'clock every day. So being an 8th grader playing varsity, I'm sure mentally he was punching out, already ready to go, having his bag packed, like was excited to get to practice. So teacher telling me he punching out, work incomplete, and this and that. So I took my son off the team.
Mm.
And nobody in the community, neighborhood ever thought I would do it, because I'm just hell bent basketball. So once I took him off the team, I told him, you thought I was playing. And I had kept threatening and threatening and threatening. You know how sometimes you be threatening, and around my house, basketball is everything. So when I took my kid off the team, the whole world didn't believe it. First, people thought it was a rumor till they wasn't seeing him at the games, because my son had a chance to be a 5-time state champion, because you're on varsity as an 8th grader, you
Mhm.
know? And I had told him, uh, because they played a couple of games in the sectionals in our neighborhood. I tried to take him to the first game. All of a sudden on a Friday, he wasn't home. The second time, I told him, "Hey, when I come home Friday at 5 o'clock, be here. We're going to the game." He said, "I don't want to go to the game." "No, you're going to the game." I took him to the game, and I said, "I want you to," I said, "Now, here's what you need to do." I said, "Mike Tyson done did it. Tiger Woods done did it. I done had to do it." I said, "I need you to take your walk of shame right now." I said, "When all these little girls and all these little people that's kissing your ass and everybody's got your head all gassed up, when they ask you, 'Gary, why you ain't playing? Why you ain't playing?' I said, I want you to tell them my dad wouldn't let me play because I was effing up in school." I said, "So make
Mhm.
sure you get that message out there. So go and take your walk of shame." And I took it to the game and I made him walk to the student section and all that. So that was my way of being hard on him. And I told him, the next time you're not on a basketball team, it won't be because of me. It will be because the school had to take you off because of your grades. I just wanted you to feel a taste of what it's going to be like basketball. So I want you to get a taste of it now.
Well, how long did you
And
take him off the team?
I took him off the team for the rest of the season, and them boys
Oh,
ended up winning the state championship without him.
mm.
You
So
know,
he
that was
behaved
Tyus
from that
was a
point on. Oh my
but
goodness.
I had Kermit. It hurt me. Listen,
Yeah.
it was making me want to throw up because I've never taken my listen. My son could have missed school some days because he was sick. But if you felt good at 5:30, we going to practice. You got to play with them symptoms. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Mhm.
So I get the schoolwork from the teacher, so you ain't gonna miss no schoolwork. All you missed was attendance, but you're not gonna miss the schoolwork and you're not gonna miss practice. So that was my way of making him play because I remember one time he had the flu. He was like 103, and my wife and my stepmom is a nurse. So she like, "Gary, you shouldn't be taking him to practice. He's got 103-degree temperature. You ever think about you just running his body down? Maybe he needs to rest." Because my son was in like seventh grade or eighth grade at seventh grade. And I said, "You know what?" I said, "Jordan played that flu game, right?" I said, "I want my son to go to practice and play with these flu-like symptoms because what I need him to understand is he's going to get winded quick. His body's going to be weak." I said, "I want him to already experience these symptoms and already be in touch with these feelings so that if it ever happens later on in life, he'll know what to expect out of himself." So I'm taking him to practice anyway. So I took him to practice. He had 103. He threw up right in the parking lot before we went into practice. But to me, I needed you to understand what it would be like to play lightheaded, play dizzy, play with your stomach not feeling good, play with all the worst conditions. So just so happened, uh, I think it was his second year. It was his birthday. They was in Dallas on a Friday. He got sick, had the flu, left the game on Friday, didn't even finish the game. Come out Saturday in Oklahoma and went at that point in time, he went for his career high of 30 with the flu. And during that game, I looked at my stepmom and my wife, and they was looking at me like trying to be smart, but they knew what I was talking about as far as I already had put him through that, you
Yeah,
know.
he'd been there
But
before.
they didn't see it. They didn't see it until 9 years later. But you know what I'm saying? Because I did this
Mhm.
back when he was in middle school. You in the pros now, but like I was telling them, this is what I want him to experience. You're gonna wake up. You're gonna feel nauseated. You're gonna be lightheaded. You're gonna be dizzy. So there was ways I was hard on my son that the average parent would think that would be being hard on him, but I was really conditioning his mind and his body for certain things, Kermit, because there's a world that these athletes are entering that's nothing but sharks.
Oh,
And
nothing.
see,
Yeah, right.
it's like people asked me at one point in time why I wasn't watching college so much. They said in college they play better defense. I said, let me tell you something. I said in college basketball there might be 2 pros on the court. I said in the NBA there's 10 pros on the court. I said it's not that nobody's playing defense. You got the best isolation players in the world, and the floor has to be space. I said that's why it looked like people ain't playing no defense. I said, but cats is out there playing D. You just when they space the floor and you ain't got no backside help, you can't. Anytime you're gonna let a Chris Paul or a guy with a handle yo, a dude can only stay in front of so many crossover between the leg moves, man. Shit, I don't care who it is.
Right.
Well, not only that though, too, you can't check these guys. As I used to, well, I always used to have to check the best offensive player. He was a 3, 4, or 5. I kept telling guys, you can't play these people straight up. They're too good. You got to
Yeah,
push them one
Yeah.
way or another. You got to have help. Don't have an ego because it was Bernard King, Marcus Johnson, Adrian
Yeah.
Dantley. Every night I had somebody that was a superstar. And that's why I told people I was in such good shape.
Yeah.
See, my weight when I played, though, Gary, was about 235. But during the off season, I go up to 250. But
Yeah.
so when season come, I said, I got to get that weight off because you're chasing, either it would be Walter Davis or there'd be Adrian, or then everybody was good that I had to check. And some guys were greyhounds and some guys were thugs, like
Yeah.
Maurice Lucas, Lonnie Shelton, Truck Robinson. I mean, you had huge guys that were.
And you had to and it's funny because the other night my son got into it with Brooke Lopez. So when I go to the Timberwolves games the next day, they asked me about it on TV, and I said I would have socked Lopez. And here's the thing about it. What people don't understand, because I'm reading all the comments in the post. First off, the reason why I would have socked him is because that was my character and how I get out. It didn't even have to be my son involved. It could have been two NBA players that had nothing to do with me. And if they said, what would you do in that scenario? At that point in time, at 20, my son is 23 at the time. At 23, I would have socked that guy because that's how I was carrying it and that's how I was made up and that was my mindset. And that's just where I was as a person.
Was the
Now,
Gary?
no,
Gary,
hold on.
go
So
ahead.
with that being said, in that interview, I never said anything about Lopez. I never said what Lopez wouldn't do. I never said Lopez would have been easy. I never said Lopez wouldn't punch back. I just said what I would have did. But see, what people weren't thinking about, Kermit, is when I came in the league in 95, if you go back way before that, guys could get in a fight and stay in the game. There wasn't no ejection, wasn't no flagrants, wasn't no none of that. So when them guys was more in the 80s, was gladiator style. So the guys that was in the league in the late 80s kind of got touched up and mentored by the guys that didn't get ejected from the game. So when I come in the mid 90s, a lot of those late 80 guys were still in the game. You talking about, guys that's gonna really, lay some wood on you like a Otis Thorpe and guys like that. I'm talking about big guy, who else out there? Anthony Mason, Lonzo, a lot of people that was gonna really bang you, Larry Johnson, guys that was really physical. So in that era, a lot of us was in that gladiator state of mind because you still had to be, so when people today read my comment about what I would have did with Lopez, they don't understand where the league was and me as a person back in the 90s and 80s like that. I didn't say anything bad about Lopez. I just said what I would have done in that moment.
Yeah, but you know what you're saying though too is like it's a pecking order in the NBA, and we as players know where we stand, and we know that you don't want to cross certain people, or it's going to be a confrontation.
It's
That's
gonna have
just
to be. It's gonna have to be.
yes, that's common.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you either move up the pecking order or you move down the pecking order.
You
But
ask
you know
any
what?
of my teammates, anytime I had a problem with somebody, if I couldn't get at you during the game, I'm gonna go to the locker room after the game. If anybody on my team always saw me, if I wasn't all the way undressed, if they saw me still with tennis shoes on after we break huddle, they know I'm going down the hallway. And I never asked none of my teammates to go. I, as an individual, is going to walk in this locker room amongst 15 to 20 men, and I'm gonna address whoever I gotta address, and whatever happens in here is gonna happen in here. And I'll wait by the bus. Because guys be talking that, man, listen, cats be out there talking reckless. I'll do this and this, and all in front of 25,000 people on TV want to act like they're getting into it with you. But then when you run into them at a club or you see them backstage, oh man, Trent, it was I don't want to hear that now. I don't want to hear none of that now. I want to hear what you was talking about out there. So I done got suspended a couple of times for things like that and whatnot, but that was just my mindset at that time, man, because a lot of guys out here pump faking, talking all that tough talk.
Yeah, you know something though, Gary. Not too many people are going to mess with you. And let's be realistic. I used to watch you play, and you really were a bullet. You played
I
bully
mean,
ball.
man, I still had the bulldozer style. That was the how people say stick to the fundamental. That was the
Yeah,
foundation and fundamental of my game was aggression and muscle. I was
yeah.
almost like a Cape Buffalo style game until I got a little skill. But you know how Cape Buffalo, you just don't want to run into a herd of buffalo.
I tell people so many guys did kind of fake like they were tough guys, and AC Green was one of them. See, and then when AC Green and when went to Phoenix, got his teeth knocked out by Reed. Wasn't it a quarter? I mean,
J.R. Reed.
and he's picking up his teeth. I mean,
Did
instead
he
of
try to he
fighting back.
try to get tough with you? He tried to get tough with you
No, no,
before?
no, no, no. You
Uh,
know, after listen,
hey,
after I
listen,
got
before
knocked
I
out,
pick up my hey, listen, if I'm picking up my teeth, Buddy got to be picking up some too. It
yeah,
just
yeah,
can't
I
happen
know.
like that. I just, AC was a teammate of mine, and he just was too nice. He just was too nice of a guy. You listen. Even I know, he was real religious, so I know he was into the turn the other cheek thing. But
Mhm.
sometimes, man, you got to turn that cheek and square up, man.
I know, I know, I know.
you got
After that,
you got to turn that cheek and be like, "What you say?" and just square on up, man. Because you
yeah, but
just
there were
sometimes some
some,
things
yeah,
just can't be overlooked.
yeah, there were some guys though. There were some tough guys in the league, and some guys that acted tough. Now Maurice Lucas was tough. Lonnie
That's every
Shelton was,
era. Yeah, yeah,
huh?
yeah. That's every era.
Oh, oh man, he started off the game with elbows. I said, now if you elbow me again, one of us going to be in the hospital.
Yep.
I just said, I'm just letting you know that. And but you had to let people know that though back then. I
Because they
mean, it
was
was just
testing
the
you.
way. Yeah, it
Now,
was in.
once you said that, he had to make a choice. Do we really want to get in this, or am I gonna go ahead and play basketball? But had you not said nothing, first
Oh,
thing he thinking, oh, I got me a sweet one. No, yeah, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball.
that's right. That's right. So I tell you. So first of all, I think your interview with us is the best we've ever had. I
I
really do.
I did want to ask you
Oh
something
wow,
too. It
I
it's
appreciate
gotta
it.
be it's gotta be a big or massive source of pride for you to be the guy who changed the whole direction of your family history. What is that like?
Man, changing the outcome of my family tree, the biggest blessing was able to like turn my son, and now he can continue it on a bigger, grander scale.
Yeah,
It's funny, me and my cousin Jerome was just talking that our kids are the first generation of family that we didn't have to teach the dope game.
yeah.
Because, when I first learned how to cook crack, my mom, I couldn't learn it in school. Every time I was talking about grams and pounds and ounces, I could never get it in math. My mom showed me on the triple beam how to weigh cocaine. And that's when I learned what 7 grams was. It was a quarter and a half. And I didn't get it until I was in that moment. And that's how I learned it. So me and my cousin would always talk about, man, how his son went to college and how my son's doing what he's doing. Our kids are the first generation of people who didn't have to, take that torch.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you,
That's
first of
awesome.
all, we want to thank you. I mean, it was a great interview, and we'll cut it up. It'll take how long, T.O.? He's the
Uh,
engineer.
Probably about a week and a half
We can
before
have, we'll
everything's
get
out
it
because
to
Man,
we
you.
I
got
appreciate you having me, man.
Oh no, no,
You know,
no.
I'm glad I got a chance to get a relationship with you as far as, through all them players association programs and things like that, man. And uh, you know, I think it's important that they keep the forefather guys in front of there. Like when you're done, you need to be replaced by an NBA player, and to keep that going. Because had you not probably been an NBA player, we wouldn't even as a black man, had you not been an NBA player, we might have not had the same connection and the same energy, because you already know you already don't walk that green mile. So you already know what I'm walking. You already know what I've been through out there in a sense. And like when people talk about the NBA brotherhood, it really is because it's like we're connected on a synergy even through different eras. When I see old heads, I love seeing you guys. I love seeing Magic, or I love seeing Isaiah. Like I just love seeing the older players, you know, when I see you guys, man, it warms me because I always connect back to how I felt when I saw you guys when I was younger.
Well, you know what? It's funny when you say that. If we were playing in the same era, I was before you. We wouldn't have been friends. I have to tell you the truth.
No, 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 no. You know,
We wouldn't have been friends. I know
you
that
know
for
what's
sure.
funny though? I was like that with guys while I played, but when I see them now, we can
Yes,
dap, we can laugh. When I
yes.
see guys like Paul Gasol and other guys that I used to bang with in the post, and guys we used to get into it with, or when I see guys like Ben Wallace and guys now, man, we love to hug and we love to talk and
Oh
catch
yeah.
up now.
Yeah, that's the truth. But see, for you, I watched you, and in a sense, even though I was out the game, I loved your strength and your aggression
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
that was important. Because I kept telling people when I was working for the union, the NBA union, I knew that certain players were going to be successful because they weren't afraid. They had
Yep.
athletic ability and not afraid. And I said, "You're going to be good." And I said that first of all to let me see who was real quick. Big Adams, Adams, the big center
Oh,
for now.
Steven
Yeah,
Adams.
Steve.
From Memphis.
Yeah, and I said to him, I said, "You know what?" He says, "I said you're going to be good." I said, First of all, you're big and strong, and you're not
Big
afraid."
and strong.
Yeah, and I said, "You're not afraid. That's half the battle.
Yep.
Don't go in there and be afraid." And as a couple of other players, I said, "Oh, you're going to be successful too." He said, "Kermit, why?" I said, "Because you're aggressive." People, I try to explain to people, ball players don't want to get in foul trouble. So you can be aggressive to a certain point, especially offensively, because they don't want to sit on a bench with donuts, we used to call it, getting
Yeah.
0 rebounds, 0 points.
Yeah.
I said, so you just have to think about being aggressive. But I always tried to get in really good shape, Gary. I always tried to be in great shape. And I was telling T.O., and we're talking about Adrian Dantley the other day. I said, when I had to check people, I would run through the pick the first time, but didn't act like I was running through it and it would hurt the guy. So the
Yeah.
next guy, the guy would move right out the way. I get a foul, but I say, "Oh, you okay? I'm sorry. I didn't mean, I want the ref to see me saying, 'Are you okay?'"
That was
Yeah,
just that was just a cover up so you didn't get the flagrant. But when I played at 250. And Kermit, you gotta think about this, right? I played 9 NBA years and 2 overseas. I had my 3-year rookie deal, and then I had 6 one-year deals. I did 1-1-1 with the Mavericks. I did 1-1-1 with the Timberwolves. So I never had the luxury of going home, putting my feet up, partying and kicking it. I came into camp one year at 250. I could run a 5:47 mile at 250 because I was training like that.
yeah. We had. Who was your coach?
I was
Uh,
just training with my own people I hired at home. I had strength coaches. I had a strength coach. I had a shooting coach. I had a conditioning coach. I had 3 different guys that was in Columbus, and that's what I did.
Was Jack Ramsey your coach at all? At all? No, he was gone
No,
from Portland.
no.
Well, we used to have to run a 2 mile. We had to run the 2 mile. If you didn't run the 2 mile, if you're a big guy under 13, you had to run it again. And most of the guys couldn't run it.
Yeah.
13. The one
When I
mile you
got to
could maybe
Portland,
get.
PJ was the coach.
Oh, who was?
PJ
Oh,
Carlissimo.
PJ Carlson.
Carlesimo and then Mike Dunleavy.
Yeah. So I tell you, I remember those days. I tell you, I was try to stay in shape too, because when you play against guys, you don't want to be embarrassed. You don't want to be humiliated, and you got to be prepared. People don't understand that. You got to put the work in. That's what you did.
Man,
That's why you were successful. And I miss those days. But then again, I look back and I said, these ball players now are more talented than we were.
more skilled, more athletic. When Dr. J jumped from the foul line, that was like the greatest feat. Now, if you can't jump from the foul line, wipe your butt with the ball, and then do a backflip, it ain't even nothing no more.
No, that's true. So, so Gary, we want to thank you. I really appreciate this,
Yeah, thank you
and
very
we'd
much.
love to come back after a couple of months and see you
Yep.
again.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate y'all. Have a
You
good
take
day.
care.